Well, hello, everybody. My name is Michael McCormick, and you are listening to the Superintendent Hot Seat, where bold superintendent leaders from across the country share their real stories behind their most difficult challenges and decisions as they work to improve student safety, wellness, and attendance in a system that's not yet fully prepared for those entering our schools. The purpose of this podcast is to engage the nation's top K-12 leaders in meaningful discussions on addressing the growing issues of anxiety, depression, bullying, and violence among students, which greatly affect their ability to learn and feel safe coming to school, as well as the teachers' ability to teach effectively. Today on the show, we have Superintendent from Mid-Dell Public Schools, Dr. Rick Cobb. Dr. Cobb, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Michael. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it should be good. Well, hey, I'm just going to dive right in.
All right.
Rick, if you had the chance to rethink, or if you wanted to rethink student wellness in your district, whether it's anxiety, student anxiety, depression, bullying, or violence, what would you do? And by the way, what are some of the key moves you've already made?
Well, I would start with the ideal. I've been superintendent. This is my 11th year as superintendent and 33rd year in public ed. And I think the one thing that has been consistent in every era, I mean, we're in a different era right now. The first 5 years I was superintendent, 2015 to 2020, is very different than what we've seen since 2020. But one thing I think that has been true in every era is the importance of sticking the landing when we have transition points. And the most critical transition point that we have is when students enter school for the first time. And whether that's a pre-K or kindergarten student, or a student that's been homeschooled and coming to us, or they've been in a private education setting and coming to us, that entry point really sets the table for everything that comes after. So trying to do more to unlock the building of the relationship with parents from the beginning would be huge. And it's something that we are working on here. It's something that we have been able to do with our family outreach and mental health programs, some summer academies with parents. And I think those things are working really well. And then when we transition from elementary to middle, from middle to high school, again, it's important that we stick those landings. You know, we've tried to create sixth grade centers at our middle schools. You know, we know that in fifth grade, our kids are really good at walking 2 tiles from the right, or to the, on the right side of 2 tiles from the wall on the right side of the hallway. They didn't forget how to do that over the summer going into sixth grade. So let's try to create spaces where the expectations remain the same, but now they're switching classes 7 times a day. And they're going into this bigger lunchroom that's a little bit louder. And so they're not just being thrown into middle school in all of its smells and glory. It's something that gives them a little bit of a softer landing. We have done a lot of projects here over the last 10 years. We have passed 3 bond issues, and one of them, the first one, allowed us to consolidate middle schools and align our feeder patterns better. So now we have 3 middle schools and 3 high schools, and those middle schools just feed right up. Midwest City High School, which is about 100 yards this direction from me, they're the Bombers because we're an Air Force community. And the middle school that feeds into them, which is just a half a mile up the road, they're the Bombers also. And so their logos, insignias, their color schemes, their mission statements, we have that kind of alignment. We do a lot of work transitioning from 8th and 9th grade at all 3 of our high schools, Dell City and Carl Albert High School as well. And so it's something that we've been very intentional about. And I think that intentionality matters, is trying to give kids soft landings into the next spot. You go from something you're familiar with to something you're unfamiliar with, and it can be terrifying. I mean, one of my first sleepless nights I remember was the night before I started 6th grade. So I always try to be very thoughtful about that with our kids.
Yeah, isn't that so true? Well, several things. I mean, congratulations on passing the bonds. That's a big deal. And for those that are not intimately involved with education, that can really create some revenue streams for facilities improvement, safety improvements, things like that in the district. And I couldn't agree with you more, Rick. I think the idea of um, it's not only traumatizing to the kids when
Hmm.
the young moms and dads are dropping them off for kindergarten for the first time. It's traumatizing for parents and students alike, because all of a sudden parents are giving their kids over to us to ensure that they're safe and they come home at the end of the day, and that we provide some education for them, build some social skills and all the other things that we try to do in schools. And so I think uh, being empathetic to that, and like you said, being empathetic to those transition points, it's interesting. Um, at one point in my career, I was a middle school principal, and it seemed to me like there was a lot more angst among parents about sending their kids off to middle school. Like that was a big transition point for the parents. And oftentimes parents will hear things out in the community about how, they love their elementary school, but they're a little unsure about the middle school until they get in and meet the teachers and meet the staff and begin to make those connections. So I love what you talked about.
Well, you're making my
Uh,
wheels turn there that, because we've seen over the years, if you look historically at our enrollment across the district, we have X number of students in our fifth grade classes and, whatever. And in sixth grade, that same cohort moving forward drops by about 10%.
right,
And, and I think that that's a lot of the reason why is I'm fine sending my kids to a neighborhood school,
right.
but I really want more control. So maybe we need to do a better job of marketing what we have that works at our middle schools to the parents while our kids are still in elementary school. So you're giving me ideas to work with here.
Well, you're not alone. I mean, we experienced the same type of drop in enrollment. And this is where what we saw is where parents were all of a sudden starting to think about what their choices might be, whether it was a charter school or a private school, because it just that middle school just seemed so much bigger, and it was not uh, most likely it was not any longer that neighborhood kind of very intimate community feel. And I think that's where parents can get a little nervous. And then as middle schools go along, sometimes there's things that happen at middle schools that get out into the community,
Sure,
and it's
sure.
not always that kind of positive marketing type material that we're looking for as school district people. But I think that's where um, having inviting the parents to come in. And that's one of the things we started doing, is inviting our elementary school kids and parents to come in. And there's nothing really unique about that. That happens all over the place. But we really use that opportunity to highlight some of the wonderful programs we had at our middle schools, whether it was band or choir, or we had engineering classes and things like that. And parents were always pretty amazed to find out that, my goodness, the kids are really getting some rock solid experiences here. And so I'm sure that you've got some incredible things happening at your schools. Rick, what are some ways that you've really worked over your tenure as superintendent to get kids connected to schools? What are some of the programs that you're most proud of?
Well, we had a principal who's retired now at one of our middle schools who she took the class rosters and put them up in the lounge of the teacher workroom and told her staff, I want you to go through and take a highlighter to any kid that you're working with in some capacity outside of the classroom, whether it's in basketball or band, robotics, chess club, whatever. And at the end of the week, they looked at the lists at the names that they looked at the names that weren't highlighted on the list. And the administration team started having one-on-one conversations with those students and trying to find out, what is it you're not, what is it you'd like to see us offer that we're not offering? And they found some places to plug in almost all of those kids. And our high schools all three of our high schools are 5A, which in Oklahoma, 6A is the largest high school classification that we have. So they're pretty big, but they're not huge. They're not, 1,300 students, you can still get lost in the crowd, but they're not so big that 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 we don't have spaces for people. There are some bigger high schools in Oklahoma where they have to limit the number of students who go out for football or who go out for band. And those are the biggest, by numbers, student activities that you're going to have in any high school, band and football. And the high school I taught at 25 years ago, it never divided into multiple high schools. And so I think you have a smaller percentage of students who can play sports there because, it's just a matter of percentages. About 35% of our students, our high school kids, are involved in athletics. And another 30 to 35% are involved in fine arts. And there is some overlap. We're working on right now some marketing programs to showcase our students who are both athlete, artist. And I think it's important to deliver that message because it's really important. We're the only school district in Oklahoma that has its own CareerTech center. So we have over 400 juniors and seniors who are going to CareerTech every day and learning trades. I was talking to a student Tuesday morning who is in our aerospace program at the Mid-Del Tech Center. He wanted a picture with me, which is hilarious. I'm like, how do you even know who the superintendent is? But he was fanboying, and I really just don't get that. But I thought, okay, what program are you in? And he told me, and I'm like, okay, wow, you're way smarter than I was in high school, and you're going to end up way cooler than anything I love what I do, but what you do is mind blowing to me. So we try to find students. We try to match students with the experiences that they want to have. We can't do everything. We are also in our community. We have a community college, and we have a lot of students taking concurrent courses their junior and senior year. A lot of the courses at our tech center feed into articulation agreements with the community college. So our students are at our tech center, but they're earning college credits. And so they're leaving high school with a diploma, industry certification, and a pathway towards an associate degree already started. And so just trying, at the high school level, I think that we've unlocked opportunities for most students to feel connected. There's always going to be a percentage that really just wants to come to school, do what they have to do, and be left alone and walk away. And I think that we have to respect that too. It's the middle school that I still think is the harder nut to crack. We have sports, but the sports seasons are 50 to 75% as long as they are in the high school. And it's not that I want to see more middle school basketball games. It's that I want our kids to have more days that that after school isn't the last time they're with an adult who's really looking in on them. And we have some students that come from from homes that parents work evenings, or just all kinds of situations that aren't as supervised and aren't as structured. So I want our students to have more time during the school day and outside of the school day that they have structure. And I think that we've tried to create programs like that. Esports is something that we are building that into all of our programs. That's really good right now. We have one of the best swim teams in the state. We have won state multiple times, our boys and girls swim team, and we don't even have a pool. Our kids are practicing in 4 or 5 different locations. In fact, in our last bond, we threw in $10 million to go into a partnership with the city of Midwest City and the YMCA and one of the hospitals here, SSM Health. And we are building a new YMCA in Midwest City that's going to have a dedicated competition pool that we will own and that our students will benefit from. And that's going to allow us to not just have a place for our swim team to practice. I want to have middle school swim teams. I want to have swim. I want to have rescue and lifeguard classes, and get our students into summer jobs that, where they can be out in the sun and 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 really and and maybe focus on the safety of other people. I want to have swim classes for all of our elementary students, so that we can really talk about water safety and just kind of create some health there. I want our students to feel like I can work out, but it doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be lifting weights. Swim is an opportunity for students as well. So it's trying to find just more opportunities for everybody in our community to have some healthy lifestyle choices, but also just for our students to have structured opportunities outside of the school day.
Yeah, no, I really love and connect with what you're saying. And I think that, for people that may not necessarily have been in schools, and here we're talking to a superintendent who's talking about, creating a really creative way to get a pool into the community. And some people might say, well, that seems like it's a long ways away from educating kids. And of course, you and I would argue that no, that's exactly the kinds of things that we should be doing, along with the kind of more routine things that we do, and ensuring high quality instruction for all of our kids, and access to rigor throughout every corner of their school day. And of course, we're thinking about those things, but we're also thinking about how do we build or improve our facilities, because I think that also creates a sense of belonging. When kids feel pride in their school campus, and their school campus is clean and safe and modern, that creates um, a better environment for everybody who's at school, the adults, the parents who are coming to visit, certainly the kids. um, and kids talk to one another, especially if they're in competition with students in other districts. They get to go travel to those other districts and see what their facilities look like. And I always wanted to instill a sense of pride in our students and our adults in the school system by ensuring that we had the very best facilities that we could afford for our students, and that things were clean, um, and well maintained. And that's, it seems like somebody might say, well, how does that contribute to the wellness of adults and students on campus? And my experience is it has a ton to do. When kids feel a sense of pride for their school and their facilities, and they have a sense of um, gratitude, like you might be doing this as well. I mean, in our school district that I was running, every kid who wanted to be in the band, they got an instrument from the school district. The parents didn't have to go out and rent instruments. And likewise, if kids signed up to play athletics, they got everything that they needed to do that. And we wanted our kids to look good, I'm sure, just like you do.
Yeah, one of the things that has been threaded through all of the bonds we've done since I've been here is that we want to balance our investment in our classroom spaces and our big public spaces. When a football team comes up from Lawton, Oklahoma, and their crowd comes, the only thing they see of our school and of our community is the football stadium. And if it's a dump, that's the message they take back to Lawton. And if it's amazing, that's also the message they take back. And so we've won between our three high schools over 35 state championships in the 10 years I've been here. And I think that we're about to win some more this fall and then again in the spring. I mean, we're averaging almost 4 state championships a year in team sports since I've been here. And that has nothing to do with my leadership, although you can see occasionally they give me, little tokens back here. Looking on the screen, can't really figure out where to put my hand,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. No, I got you.
it's nice. It's nice when they show me some gratitude. I believe in upgrading the facilities. Our PACs, our performing arts centers, um, They've all had new curtains. They've had the stages redone. They've had new seating, new lighting and sound, new lobbies put in. They're absolutely beautiful. And we had a funeral service in one for a former employee on Sunday, and I got a lot of compliments from other people who used to work here and hadn't been in that facility in 20 years. And I want the people in our community to be proud of the buildings that they work in, that they walk into, that their kids go to school in, or even just that you drive by when you're driving to the grocery store and you see a building. I want you to think, well, that looks pretty good. And one of the other things we've been able to do in every bond is dedicate funding for textbooks, school buses, technology, athletic equipment and uniforms, fine arts equipment and uniforms. So we've been able to not only resurface the fields at the football stadiums, we've also been able to buy band uniforms and have a cycle for the next purchase of band uniforms. We've had money every year for band and orchestra equipment, and and not only do our bands need uniforms, our orchestras need performance clothes. And we just had our district orchestra concert Tuesday night, and it was incredible. Our middle school students have learned to play the Star Spangled Banner in 9 weeks of school. That's pretty impressive. Our
That's
teachers are
very
doing a
impressive.
heck of a job
Yeah.
there. But we're investing in those programs because, like you said, if we didn't, I don't know that a lot of our kids could buy the instruments, that their families could buy the instruments. We've had students that were on my advisory board when they were in high school go on to colleges out of state, and I have one former student, Jalen Vincent, who has performed at Carnegie Hall. And actually, he composed a symphony that was performed at Carnegie Hall. I mean, it's incredible what our students can do if we give them the tools. That student, he's brilliant. I don't think we could have screwed him up if we tried. But we also provided him for opportunities to go above and beyond just being a brilliant kid with high test scores.
Yeah.
And
No, Rick, it's going to sound funny to say this, but you're speaking a language here that I can completely appreciate because it was the same perspective I had. I served in a community for 27 years, and 85% of the students were on free and reduced lunch. But here's the thing. When the students feel connected, whether it's through athletics or clubs or their performing arts or any number of ways that we connect kids to school, it gives them a reason to come to school and to do well, and notice that there are people that care about them. And I think that all leads to a sense of mental, physical wellness that it can be really powerful for kids. And it's post COVID that we've got more of an emphasis on specific social emotional learning that we're providing for kids. And I think that's super powerful. The other thing I wanted to mention is just that when kids feel connected to school, and they learn how to win together and how to lose gracefully together, there's something about that. But from an instructional lens, a very powerful thing that I see teachers do, whether it's in athletics or the performing arts, is the instructional cycle is very short in athletics and performing arts. In other words, during practice, the coach or the conductor will watch a sequence that the kids are doing, whether they're playing an instrument, singing a song, rehearsing lines for theater, or in any number of sports. And coaches are very quick to stop, do a little checking for understanding, provide some instructional feedback or some corrective. I want you to do this differently, or I want you to play that note a little bit differently, or I want you to sing that note a little differently. And then they start up the whole practice session again. And I've often thought to myself, man, I wish our core instructional teachers had kind of that same academic cadence where, they're stopping, checking for understanding, providing guidance, and then going right back to it. And I wanted to point that out. It's something I've been spending more time thinking about in my old age, and I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, the rehearsal time for the orchestra concert on Tuesday, when we bring in a clinician to work with our students, when they're playing a piece, and she says, "All right, stop. I want to hear the first violin group." And they play, and she says, "Okay, we need to speed up this section here." That's a CFA. That's a common formative assessment.
That's exactly right.
And football coaches, basketball coaches, any coach of a team sport, they are all about data driven instruction. We have former players here playing college football in the NFL, and there's one of our former students is you know we're tracking his stats as a defensive lineman at the University of Oklahoma right now, and I think somebody had him as like the highest rated defensive lineman in the country a couple of weeks ago. And that's really exciting. That's data, though. Those are data points. And if you want a model for continuous improvement, then yeah, dip your toes into athletics or fine arts, because that's where it is. And they go section by section, grouping by grouping. It's not I'm not evaluating this orchestra, you know, moment by moment based on the entire performance. We go bit by bit. In 9 weeks that it took the middle schools to learn the national anthem, they didn't learn it all on day one and get better at the whole thing week by
Right.
week. They
Right.
learned it in pieces and then put those pieces together.
Yeah.
And that is a model for what we're doing with instruction. But first, we have to get them to the school. We have to keep them engaged. We have to keep them out of trouble so that we can keep them in school. And I
Right.
think
Right.
that takes all of the things outside of the school day as well.
Yeah. No, really well said. I appreciate it. Well, hey, Rick, let's pause here for a quick
Okay.
30-second break for a message from our producer, Schoolbeat, formerly MooZoom, which is the only SEL platform both educators and students truly love. With low lift, Netflix style, choose your own adventure and real time insights into what students really feel. Schoolbeat is where every heart has a voice and every voice has a beat. All righty, we're back. Dr. Rick Cobb. Man, the time has flown by.
I'm
But
looking at
as
that
we
clock up there. It really has.
right, it really does go by quick. But Rick, I wanted to ask, um, I think most would say, and there's probably some general agreement that the job of the superintendent can be a tough one. What are some things that you do to kind of fill your cup back up? What kind of keeps you going?
Well, if I could do a 360 here in my office, I've got a really nice office. It's very comfortable. It's very easy to get comfortable in here and stuck here and mired down. I can do 8 to 5 in this office and never run out of things to do. No question about it. But it doesn't fill my cup. It does not make me happy. It does not connect me back to why I got into education in the first place. I always joke that I majored in English so that I could turn into a guy who's doing budgets and spreadsheets all the time.
That's right. That's right.
That's my life, and I've chosen this. Nobody filled out job applications for me that got me to where I am. So it's the life I've chosen. But I schedule time to visit with principals. I just came back from a one-on-one with one of our elementary principals. We have 21 sites, and so I try to do a one-on-one with every principal each semester. It takes time. Uh, Sometimes I get out there and it's not a strain to do it. And sometimes I really have to put things that are urgent aside and come back to them. And today was one of those days where I have a lot on my plate. We have homecoming this afternoon at Del City High School, and it's
Right
our
on.
third homecoming in the last 4 weeks. I'm riding in the golf cart with the head principal in the homecoming, throwing candy at children later today. At two children, not at them.
I was gonna say,
Um,
careful, careful.
that's their reflexes. Um, but that's a good time that we spend together every year doing that. The other two parades, I walked. My leadership team and I, some of us like to walk in the parades. So last week I was in the Carl Albert High School parade and I walked the entire route, which was 2.5 miles. And they decided to walk at a pretty fast clip. And so I still have a little bit of Achilles tenderness from that, but it was fun. And how many people, you know, this is where it's different from year one. A lot of people know who I am, and so they'll shout out and say hi, and it just, it feels good to even have a brief moment of connection with people. Going into buildings, I like to be in schools for lunches, for dismissal, just to kind of see what kind of a mess dismissal is sometimes. But I like to talk to kids about, and we have free breakfast and lunch at all of our sites. But we saw a lot of kids that pack their lunch and they're really creative. They found a way to put 7 or 8 different snack items in their lunch pail. And I just think those kids are the leaders of the future because they've cracked the code on that. So you have ding dongs and Oreos and Skittles. Man, that's how to. I'm glad I'm not going to be around you this afternoon.
That's right.
A fun
That's
second
right.
grade classroom. But
Oh my gosh.
I just love it when I get to spend time with people outside of this building. We had a really good breakfast here this morning for Boss's Day. And, it's also a reminder that, yeah, I think what fills my bucket is outside of this building most of all, but I have great people in this building too. And over the last 10, 11 years, getting to know them, you know, and care about what happens in their lives and not just seeing this as a job and seeing them as employees. These are people that have lives, and I try to get to know them so that I can have meaningful conversations about their lives and not just work.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful. And I used to say that the best conversations I had with community members and employees were ones where we didn't talk one bit of education. It was more of how's the family doing? How are the kids? Oh, your kids are playing soccer. How'd that last game go? And just those kinds of conversations where you're really connecting with people on that human level, because we all of us have messy lives, and I think we can connect with each other. I'm not saying that we need to tease out the worst of what's happening in people's lives, but what I'm saying is I think that there's a level of empathy that we can display towards one another that has nothing to do with any job related activity, but more about just how things are going. How's I saw you did XYZ, and how did that turn out? And I love to be able to go back and actually follow up with people from a previous conversation and say, oh, I remember we talked about this or that, and how did that turn out for you? And I think that's the way that as superintendents we can really successfully connect with people, because I think we are people's people at heart. I mean, I love to be around people. I can tell that you love to be around people.
Well, this is serious work. Every principal needs to be able to have an impromptu conversation with me about the strategic plan and what they're doing to try to move forward towards our goals. I need to be able to go into their buildings and have a conversation with them about what it means to be a human being, because that is still more important than anything. And we can toggle back and forth, and again, this is year 11, and some of my principals are in year 11 or beyond in their roles. And so we've built that kind of cadence with each other. And some of my principals are in year 1 or 2. And what tends to happen in year 1 or 2 is I get a little bit more smoke blown at me, and that's fine. You get comfortable with me when you get comfortable with me. Um, and so to be able to toggle between here's the discussion about the strategic plan, and here's what else you need me to know about what's going on in your life. I'm not nosy. I don't pry. When an employee takes a personal day, I don't ask them what's going on. I assume it's personal, you know? So, but if they tell me what's going on, then I follow up because I'm interested in what's happening in their lives. I just don't, I recognize there also is a power dynamic. I'm the superintendent. And so it's not my place to be in everybody's business. But
That's right.
if they've peeled back the curtain, then I'm going to show that interest, and I'm going to follow up.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I love that. Final question.
Yes.
What's on your gratitude list? What are you grateful for, Rick?
Honestly, I think what I'm most grateful for right now at work is the people that I have around me. This is year 11, so the cabinet that I have is the cabinet I've chosen, and I have strong people around me. Sometimes they're strong personalities that butt heads with each other a little bit, or even with me. But I've got a really good team around me, and I don't have to do everything. And that goes down the line to principals as well. My executive assistant just reads my mind, gets things done before I even need them. I don't even know if she knows how good she is, and she's amazing. Personally, the two best things that have ever happened to me are my kids and then becoming an empty nester. And so,
I can appreciate that.
my daughter, I have one of my daughters is coming home. She lives out of state. She's coming home to spend a few days with us next week, and I'm looking forward to that. But I'm also appreciative of the fact that my wife and I can go out, and we love to travel. We love to go to concerts. We went to a music festival in Chicago a few weeks ago. The fact that I actually have the ability to get out of town and spend some quality time with my wife, realizing that we're a little too old for a 3-day punk rock music festival, but not too old to try. And it was amazing. But man, I was struggling after by the third day of it. Well, all right, Green Day's about to go on stage, but I'm having a good time. And the fact that I could take off that Friday and go to Chicago and know that things here were going to be fine. And even if some kind of a crisis happened, I have good people in place, that my deputy superintendent, my director of safety and security, my executive director of communications. I'm not worried about the ball getting dropped if I happen to take a vacation day that I'm entitled to. And that's another thing over time, learning that I am entitled to use my vacation leave.
Yeah.
It took a while to get to that point.
Yes.
And
Yes,
now I
it
remind
does.
people all the time, you should take your vacation leave.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's there for.
Because,
We don't know how long we're here for. So
That's
you might
right.
as well
That's
buy
right.
those concert tickets when you can.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's exactly right. You might be a little sore after that 3-day punk rock concert series, but those are the kinds of things that help fill the cup. And so that when you're at work, you bring your full self to work and you're ready to serve. And that's a hard lesson to teach young people in their career, that it really is important to use that vacation time and get away and have a little separation and honor the people that are closest to you, your loved ones, with some time. Because I know for me, I certainly could not have dedicated my life to education without the support structures in my house, namely my bride, who just really allowed me to be of service to other people. And so, no, fantastic. Well, Rick, I love your gratitude list. Hey, this has been fantastic. You have been a great guest. Today's guest, Dr. Rick Cobb, Superintendent Hot Seat. We're so grateful for you. Thanks a ton. Take care.